Hey there, it's Steve from Serious Keto, and this is the Not So Serious Keto video podcast. This one may be a little bit shorter. I think that pretty much every time I do one of these podcasts, I think it's going to wind up being short, and then I still have to trim it down to get it anywhere close to 20 minutes. But I think maybe this week it might actually be shorter. In fact, that should almost be a goal. My goal this week should be to do a not very good podcast, just because last week I kind of outdid myself, and I think I need to re-lower the bar. I'm going to start this podcast with a review of the book, The Wim Hof Method. Now, this is not a review of the method itself. I feel I really need to get at least 60 or 90 days of really committed practice under my belt before I can give you my assessment of the Wim Hof Method. It's also not a review of Wim Hof, the man, who I like immensely. I think if I met him in person, I would probably love him. He is like a cross between a Buddhist monk and a Viking, and with just a little bit of crazy thrown into the mix. And I like a little bit of crazy. I think a little bit of crazy tends to be where a lot of innovation and creativity and unorthodox solutions to common problems come from. A little bit of crazy shakes things up, and that's what I love about Wim Hof. Unfortunately, I didn't love this book, and it pains me to say that. And if any of you are Wim Hof fans, I want you to know, first off, I am a Wim Hof fan. So before you feel like typing anything nasty to me, just hold on and hear me out. My first issue was really sort of the writing style. It just doesn't flow all that well, in my opinion. And I realize that Wim Hof speaks like 10 or 12 different languages, and English, I'm pretty sure, is not the first of his languages. But it does have that feel of someone writing that doesn't have a great command of the English language. But I will totally give him a pass on that, like he cares that I'm giving him a pass. But I will give him a pass on that because I could never write a book in another language. I barely speak Spanish, and some people might argue that I barely speak English. So I still give him credit for whipping out a book that's not in his native language. It feels, though, very rambling in its nature. Not entirely unlike listening to him speak in any of his YouTube videos. But when I'm witnessing him speak and I'm seeing his body motions, his big motions and stuff, and it just sort of pulls me in, and I like that. But I don't get that same feeling as I'm reading it. And a lot of it just winds up feeling fairly repetitive. I think you could distill the Wim Hof method down to probably 30 pages of this book, which is in total close to 200. And really, it's chapters 3, 4, and 5 that cover the Wim Hof method. And I think as I look at it, it does fall into probably the 30 to 40 pages sort of range. I've also, you may see these tabs. This is where I've marked various exercises that he recommends you do, breathing exercises, cold exercises, etc. It starts really kind of as an autobiography for the first 2 chapters, and then it gets into the Wim Hof method, and then it returns to an autobiography talking about his deceased wife. And that was a tough chapter to read. It was heartbreaking and touching and uplifting all sort of simultaneously, and it increased my respect for Wim Hof. From there, the rest of the book just gets into sort of that rambling sort of thing that he does, and the instructions I find in some of these exercises are lacking, at least from my perspective. Being a former process excellence person, I've got sort of a standard that I believe you follow when you're giving instructions so that people can follow them. So simply telling somebody to, breathe in, breathe out, make it a circle, make it like a wave, control or feel your heartbeat, slow it down, feel your body temperature, warm it up. I don't know how to do that. I think you need to be a little bit more clear to me on how do I slow down my heartbeat? How do I increase my body temperature? I don't know how to do that. And I don't know if eventually, after 30 days or 60 days or 90 days of doing the methodology, suddenly you just get it. And if that's the case, I would have liked him to say, just trust me. After 30 days or 60 days or 90 days of doing this, you'll realize how to tap into that potential. He talks a lot about activating your potential and achieving your full human potential. And he talks about how science backs all of this, and he's got all kinds of notations and things like that at the end of the book. But he spends a lot of time just saying, that he's not a Superman. Anybody can do this. You can do this. I can do this. But never really tells me how to do it. I feel like this book, in a way, is sort of there to pique our interest so that then we sign up for one of his $300 online classes or something like that. You can open this book to almost any place and read a paragraph that sounds something similar to this. Critics and skeptics will, of course, say that I've got my head in the clouds, that I should be practical, that I should just shut up already. But how can I be quiet when I'm dwelling in the seat of the mind? I'm sending the signals into the hemispheres, into the ethereal world, into the past. The expression of the soul transcends our concepts of time and space. It's right here, right now. The past, the present, and the future are one. You can access them all, like going into the library and picking out the right book. You can make use of this library at any time because it's yours. It was always yours. It is your birthright to be happy, strong, and healthy. Your destiny is yours, my friends, and you can find it in the breath. There is a lot of that in this book. One other thing to be aware of if you're debating whether or not to read this book is there is a little bit of salty language in here. Not at the level of like Penn Jillette, that sort of thing, but the one chapter on breathing is actually called Breathe, Motherfucker. And there is enough F-bombs in this to pretty easily get it an R rating if it were a movie. Now, I'm not a prude or anything like that. I'm no stranger to F-bombs. In fact, at one point in my life, I think I was pretty much an Olympic gold medalist in profanity. But now I don't so much anymore. I think a lot of it has to do with having a grandson, and he just picks up everything, so I don't want him picking up any of that from me. I've also found that the less you use profanity, the more impactful it is when you actually use it, because now it's a shock. It's not just part of your everyday language. And I look at the situations where Wim decided to use F-bombs in this, and I didn't come away feeling that it enhanced what he had to say at all. He could have made that chapter, just called it, just let go and breathe, or something like that, and it would have had exactly the same impact. So if language like that concerns you, then also another reason to not read this book. I don't know who I would recommend this book to necessarily. It's not going to turn any skeptics. If you're aware of who Wim Hof is and you want to know a little bit more, I think you can find out a lot more about him just through his videos. And there are things I found watching his videos in terms of some of the breathing methodology that were far more clear in the video than they were in the book. So I'm going to have to say this is not going to fall into Steve's recommended books. I'm sorry. I still love Wim Hof. From time to time on the podcast, I answer a frequently asked question. And one of the frequently asked questions that I get are, what supplements do you take? And I've been reluctant to answer that question just because I know that no matter what I say, I'm going to get certain people, I'm going to get a lot of people that have some sort of comment about how I'm doing it wrong. Let's say vitamin C, for example. If I said I take 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C a day, I would have a certain percentage of people that say, that's a complete waste, you don't even need to take vitamin C, don't do it, you're throwing your money away. I'd have other people say, 1,000 milligrams, that's way too much, you're peeing most of that out. I'd have other people that say, 1,000 milligrams, that's way too little, you need to take 5,000, 10,000, whatever. So I'm not interested in all that in my comment section, so I'm not going to run through sort of the, for lack of a better word, just basic supplements that I take. What I will talk about are two things. One, everything that I've tried to improve my sleep that has failed. I've gotten a number of suggestions from my viewers with very helpful intent on supplements to take to improve my sleep, and none of them have worked for me. So I'm going to read you the list of those just so you know what hasn't worked for me and you can not suggest those things to me anymore. So these are all viewer suggestions. Vitamin B1, black seed oil capsules, copper citrate, magnesium glycinate, and I'm hoping I pronounce all these correctly, potassium iodide, selenium, choline and inositol. It's a combo. They're both in one capsule. L-theanine, melatonin, 5-HTP, lithium orotate, and this last one I'm sure I'm going to pronounce incorrectly, coffea cruda. At least those are the ones when I went back through my Amazon order history that I saw. So don't recommend those to me anymore because I've tried them all. I wish I could have all that money back. That would be awesome. The other things that I take that I will tell you about are the ones that I know that I feel. And there's a book called The Startup Playbook by David Kidder. I've actually worked with him back in my career at GE. And in this book, he talks about entrepreneurs and he interviews, 40 entrepreneurs, people like Elon Musk, Sarah Blakely, people who have started something from nothing and been very successful. And he found that these people had 5 what he called lenses in common, ways that they look at the world. And one of those lenses is make painkillers, not vitamins. So the logic being, a vitamin is something you take that maybe makes you feel better. But, if I take a Centrum Silver this morning or don't take a Centrum Silver this morning, I don't know that I go through my day feeling any different as a result. If I took a Vicodin, I would feel that. So that's a painkiller, but I'm not taking that. I am taking the following 4 things that I can tell you either I definitely feel or I believe are important for me to take. So the first one is electrolytes. Absolutely, totally feel them. If I'm not taking electrolytes, I get various muscle cramps throughout my body. I get it in my toes, where they just like stick together, they're just like, and like they're wrestling or something. I'll get them in my calves. Sometimes in like my ribs, if I'm stretching or something, I'll get a cramp like in the intercostal muscles. And then of course the worst is the yawn cramp. So when you yawn and you cramp right here, horrible. Initially I took sport salts, but then I switched to the electrolytes from Perfect Keto just because the price wound up being better once, even with my 15% Serious Keto discount, price was better on those than they were on sport salts out on Amazon. And then now what I do is I wait until there's a big Perfect Keto sale and I'll buy a half a year's supply. So I think the next big sale probably going to be Memorial Day. That's my prediction. And I'll stock up again. So don't buy right now. Don't buy anything from Perfect Keto right now because I expect we're going to see a big sale here in a few weeks. The next one, I take a prostate health supplement. It's got saw palmetto in it. It's got pumpkin seed extract, a handful of other things. And I have absolutely felt the difference on this. Going to be slightly TMI here, but urinary flow has improved noticeably. I don't have my next urologist appointment until late summer, but it'll be interesting to see what happens. Does this change my PSA? Like I said, it's definitely improved flow. So I believe in that as a product. The third one that I take, and I believe this one was recommended from one of my viewers for aiding in sleep. Didn't aid in sleep, but boy, has it really improved my mood. And it's called ashwagandha, or ashwagandha. I'm not sure. If somebody knows how to phonetically pronounce that, let me know down in the description below. But like I said, that was suggested to me from a viewer to help with sleep. I haven't experienced improved sleep since taking it, but I used to be, I'm not going to say angry. Maybe I was. There was a time when I was generally sort of an angry person, if you can believe that. And a lot of that improved with meditation. But there was still some there lots of things could set me off in terms of my mood, in terms of anxiety, getting grumpy, getting angry. Since I started taking this ashwagandha about 2 months ago, nothing. I have no instances of getting anxious, no losing my temper, even things that used to happen that would induce some profanity, like if I hit my thumb with a hammer or something like that, not intentionally, obviously, as part of a project, that would usually unleash a pretty big stream of profanity from me. Now, I'm just like, gosh darn it. I think also having a grandson around all the time has improved my language a bit, but just not losing my temper, I credit that to the ashwagandha. The final thing that I take, and I can't say for sure that I feel it, but I believe it's a necessary thing, is I take ox bile with dinner, which is pretty much my main, if not only meal of the day. I had my gallbladder removed a number of years ago, and the way a gallbladder works, for those who aren't aware, and for those who are aware, hopefully you'll agree that I'm explaining this correctly, it's like a little balloon that contains bile, and your liver fills up that balloon. And when your stomach gets enough fat in it, that balloon squishes, goes like squish, and squirts some of that bile into your stomach to help digest the fat. When I had it removed, what they do then is they just run, I guess it's the bile duct, directly into the stomach. So the stomach is getting a constant feed of bile rather than a rush or a burst of bile when you eat fat. And since I'm keto and I tend to eat pretty high fat, I want to make sure that I've got enough bile to take care of that. So I take the ox bile. So I'd be curious to know, and you can let me know down in the comments below, is there any supplement that you take that you absolutely 100% believe is life-changing for you, that you truly wouldn't want to go without because you physiologically know, you feel it when you take it? Let me know down in the comments. Unless it's one of the supplements that I listed already, then don't let me know. Next, we have a couple of little channel updates. First off, I'm debating whether I'm going to continue doing Throwback Thursdays. It seemed like a really good idea at the time, and a number of people have said that they like it. It's introducing them to some of my older videos. Unfortunately, I went into channel analytics, and you can actually see how many people have unsubscribed to your channel based on a given video. So I went into the intro video that I did for the wasabi lime almonds, and I had 70 people unsubscribe from that particular, like they watched that video or saw that video and on that page hit the unsubscribe button. And given how slowly the channel is growing lately, there are days when I don't hit 100 subscribers. So losing 70, that's a big percentage there. So I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to continue it. I may look at some of the videos that are older that I'm really especially not proud of the video itself, but like the recipe, or saw significant opportunities to improve upon the recipe and do a reshoot of those. That's a possibility. But I'm really kind of on the fence whether or not I continue Throwback Thursdays. I'm also looking at potentially doing something a little bit different with the podcast. I don't completely know what yet. It could be a collaborative podcast. It could be having guests on from time to time. It's a struggle week after week. And I don't know what number this is, like 65, 66, I'm not sure. But to come up with material and not have a person that I can directly interact with. I do my best to make it feel like you and I are interacting together, that we're sitting across the table, having a little coffee. But at times it doesn't feel completely organic and natural, and I'm also, honestly, I'm starting to struggle a little bit for material week after week that we can talk about. So those are a couple of potential changes that you might see. I also really want to spend a little bit more time understanding video editing and seeing if there isn't something more I can do in terms of my cooking videos. Now, I don't want to get full out, theatrical, like Black Tie Kitchen. He's in a league of his own. I'll never be able to pull something like that off. But he has inspired me to be perhaps a little bit more creative in terms of either the graphics that I use or any sort of camera angles or something like that. I feel what I got going on is pretty rudimentary in terms of cooking videos. And maybe a lot of you appreciate that, so I'm not going to get overly flashy and things like that, but I would like to see what I can do to make it a little bit more eye candy-ish, food pornish, whatever you want to call it. In terms of last week's Easter egg, that was pretty obvious. I had it was like a 4-foot tall Darth Vader standing back there. And, I told you it was May the 4th, or it was May the 3rd, the day of the podcast. But, that was a pretty obvious one. So I don't think anybody got that one wrong. One last thing before I close out the podcast. It's another frequently asked question. It's, where did you get that shirt? And the answer is most of the time out on $6shirts.com. I'm not an affiliate marketing partner with them. Sure would be nice though. So if you're ever out there buying shirts and it asks, where did you hear about $6 shirts? Say you heard about it from Steve at Serious Keto. If it's a shirt though that I didn't buy on $6 shirts, it's usually one that I got from Amazon and I will link to in the description. So, like this one, pretty sure this one came from Amazon. If it is, I'll link to it down in the description below, and I'll also link to those handful of supplements that I truly believe in. That's it for this podcast. As always, thanks for watching or listening.